Alright, good morning Nigeria and welcome to National Discourse this beautiful Friday morning. Today I have someone in the studio, but we'll go for a short break. Before we come back, I announce him. Now, we know that the role of the judiciary as an arm of government cannot be overemphasized. They have what they are supposed to do to keep the government going. Now today we are discussing the role of judiciary in the fight against corruption. And let's not forget that one of the agendas that brought this administration on is the fight against corruption. Now we're going to look at how well the judiciary have done and what their core responsibilities are to make sure that the fight against corruption have succeeded, if it has. We need a contribution on this program. You'll see our number rolling on the screen shortly. As to remain your host, Uche Uduma. We'll go for a short break. When we come back, we'll go straight into what we have. Please stay with us. Welcome to National Discourse.
Current affairs.
We must not extricate anybody from corruption. If any one of them is found wanting, the due course and the law must take its course.
Nation building.
Administration is slightly different from the last one in the fight against corruption.
We need to really task our leaders, who are the religious leaders, from the emir, from the bishops, from whoever they can.
Some of our village markets, there are people, they call them in house like Nakama. They are like Agberu in the markets. Whatever anything is not useful to you is not important to you.
Politics.
What happened in Benue might be political. It still has another tone, not political. Dated way back. If you follow history.
It's interactive.
Not part of Nigeria.
Okay.
And it will not be good for us.
When they gather their people, they tell them, these Hausa people are your enemies. When the Hausas gather together, they tell them, these Igbo people are your enemies. When the Yoruba people gather together, they say the same thing.
Who are we? We are just from the background. And today, we are here in TSTV. And that is why we must propagate our own.
National Discourse. Weekdays on
Alright, welcome back from that short break, and straight on we have Barrister Peterson who is in the studio here with us, who has come to do justice to this topic. Let's remember the role of the judiciary in the fight against corruption, which this government has actually promised us. You're welcome, sir.
Thank you, it's a pleasure.
Yeah, thank you very much for coming. And then straight to what we have today, we are looking at the role of the judiciary in the fight against corruption. We know that this government, one of the things that brought them on the limelight is the fact that they promised Nigerians they're going to fight corruption. So we are looking at what the judiciary, what is their role, what have they done to ensure that this has taken effect. So what really have the judiciary as an arm of government done?
Well, judiciary, of course, which is a general knowledge, is saddled with the responsibility of interpretation of the laws of our country. So the judiciary is always there to interpret the laws, and the government, of course, we have executive, judiciary, and the legislature. So the executive are the executors of the law. So that's why the fight against corruption always commences with the executive, by way of investigation, by way of arrest, by way of prosecution. It's in the course of the prosecution that the judiciary will come to play. So we have seen the judiciary, of course, in this dispensation, rising up to the occasion, even to the extent of the untouchables being charged to the court, and the operators of the judiciary will always come up and adjudicate the matter without fear or favor. So the judiciary is up to its game, or to our game. So
all right, let's look at the principle of checks and balances. How does it work within the three arms of government?
Yes, of course, checks and balance, in as much as separation of powers is intertwined. The checks and balance is always there when, just like we have the issue of now, the Senate is asking, do we have the power to must we approve, or must we approve the chairman of a board or chairman of a committee before it will go? So the judiciary will always be there whenever there is conflict between the other arms of government to give interpretation to the letters of the word of the constitution, because this is a rule of law. So every arm or institution of government is being operated according to the rule of law. So when there is a conflict between each organ or even between individuals, you see judiciary coming up to give the true interpretation of what the law is.
Okay, now going into the fight against corruption proper. 2014 during campaign against 2015, that was electionary year. This government that is in power right now promised Nigerians they're going to fight against corruption. Now, without being a partisan, in this, all right. Now, as a lawyer coming from the judicial arm of government, what do you think? Do you think the fight has been justified, or do you think the fight against corruption, has been succeededly, or have been done?
Yeah, the government on its own, just like I said, this rule of law has done it to the best of their ability. They have done their best, what they can do. But though they say when good is not cannot satisfy demand and perfect is required, the government will always go to court to try people. But my take on that is that, just like the recent pronouncement of CJN, he said that government should create a court that will try corruption cases. Just like we have election petition tribunal and all whatnot. You see, this thing is a function of the law. You cannot operate without the law. And thank God for the recent reform, Administration of Criminal Justice Act, and other pronouncement by the Supreme Court and what we are having now. But in my take, the government has done her best to fight corruption in that. That is not enough. Just like I said, if I'm to score the government, though among this thing, many view it as selective.
What is your own view? What's your take on this? Like the government fighting corruption, what do you think they have done? Like, it's either they have done something, or they have not done enough, or they have done nothing.
Yes, you cannot despair the fact that the government of this current dispensation is not fighting corruption. They are fighting corruption.
Good.
Yes, they are fighting corruption. But what we are saying is that let the tempo be, let the tempo be increased, and also let the fight, let it not be as if it is selective, let it not appear as if it is religious in coloration, let it not appear as if it is ethnocentric in nature. Let it just be all broad and let it go around. That's my take on that.
Are you alleging that the fight against corruption has been lopsided?
To an extent.
Good. Now, let's come back to judiciary. We know how many cases there are in court since 2015 or since the assumption of office of this government. So many corruption cases have been in court. Now, those cases are still there. They are pending. I want us to take a stab at Olisamitu's case, for example. We have Dasuki Gate, we have Patient Jonathan, and all that. Now, looking at these cases, can you pick one and tell us why this is still in court? If the judiciary is doing its best to ensure that the fight against corruption, is a success.
Of course, when a matter or a case in court is sub judice, you don't discuss it. Just like you said that these cases are pending in court. But my take on that is that government can come up with laws that will strengthen the judiciary. Because a judge that is there, there are instances where the judge will say, my hands are tied. Because of the laws, we have weak laws. So what we are saying, my take or my suggestion or my contribution is that let government come up with laws. Let there be, either by way of executive bill or by the legislature, let them come up so that, because a judge of a particular court will come up, you have like 20-something cases. What will you do? All has to be attended to. So my take on that is that let government, either by way of creation of more courts, let the institution be strengthened, because you see a judge of a high court having having more than 500 case file in his docket. So how will he go about it? How will he, give effective and efficient administration to those attention to those files? So my take on that is that either by way of creation of more courts, employment facilities, and all this, these are the whole thing that government needs to do so that the issue of fight against corruption can be upped. And also recall that in Nigeria, the issue of charging corruption or corrupt cases to court has been flooded with, instead of doing proper investigation, they will just arrest somebody and charge to court. In most cases, you see the prosecutor telling the court that I want an adjournment, that the investigation is ongoing. Ordinarily, it ought to have been commence investigation. Even arrest should be at the climax, because immediately arrest the person, alarm has been raised. So my take on that, government will do due diligence. We go down and do good investigation of case, have their case, their evidence before them. Then when you charge the person to court, just like the CJN said that let them do proper investigation before rushing to court. So that's one of the problems that prosecution of corruption cases is suffering in this country.
Okay, now against that backdrop, I'd want us to give give Nigerians the procedure towards effecting an arrest, and of course before it comes to court, because we know that most times the police, they have their own role to play, but the truth is most times Nigerians don't know where the police starts and where they stop. Now, if information is given to someone, for example, or information is being revealed against someone, what is the process like starting from there and information is being given?
Okay, I was just privileged to be in the court last week, where the court gave a judgment about the police. This is a simple transaction, a simple contract that police went into it. As far as recovery of debt, with the court, France has said no. So what the court even hold in that decision that once there is a petition that is written, it is the function or the work of the police to do an investigation, invite the person. Hence, you know that this is not within our powers. This is not within our jurisdiction. You let it go. So the procedure is always that when there is an allegation, when there is a complaint, the police will do an investigation, and doing that investigation will analyze whether there is a case. 1, 2, whether the case is justifiable. 3, whether the case can be sustained in court. It's not just rushing matter to court. At the end of the day, you have a watery evidence. And most times when they do this arrest, you see that they will not, without doing proper investigation, you see that the person, the complainant or the accused will be concealing evidence.
Now, what arm of government does the police belong to?
It's executive, of course.
Good. Now, what correlation does the police have with the judicial arm of government when it has to do with effecting an arrest and then bringing the person to court?
Of course, we know that judicial cannot prosecute. It's the executive that prosecutes. And that is how we have so many organs and institutions in the executive. We have the EFCC, we have the ICPs, even NAPTIP, even police, even DSS can prosecute. So we have these agencies, they are under the executive. What we are saying, let there be proper training, let there be proper funding, let there be facilities, let there be incentive. You cannot go and bring somebody, you cannot take use somebody that just trying to eke out a living, that his salary is less than 100,000, to go and prosecute a former governor that has all that it takes. Even the clout and intimidation of the person cannot even make the person perform optimally. What we are saying, let there be incentive, let there be training, let there be facilities, so that these people can do their job well.
All right, we'll be going on a short break, but before then, I'd want to know if that this maxim that you can't give what you don't have. Now, I would want to know if the judiciary as an arm of government is devoid of corruption. But that'll be shortly after the break. Please stay with us.
Welcome to National Discourse.
Current affairs.
We must not extricate anybody from corruption. If any one of them is found wanting, the due course and the law must take its course.
Nation building.
Administration is slightly different from the last one in the fight against corruption.
We need to really task our leaders, who are the religious leaders, from the emir, from the bishops, from whoever they can.
Some of our village markets, there are people, they call them in house like Nakama. They are like Agberu in the markets. Whatever anything is not useful to you is not important to you.
Politics.
What happened in Benue might be political. It still has another tone, not political, dated way back. If you follow history,
it's interactive.
Not part of Nigeria.
Okay.
And it will not be good for us.
When they gather their people, they tell them, these Hausa people are your enemies. When the Hausas gather together, they tell them, these Igbo people are your enemies. When the Yoruba people gather together, they say the same thing.
Who are we? We are just from the background. And today, we are here in TSTV. And that is why we must propagate our own.
National Discourse. Weekdays.
Right, welcome back from that short break. Mr. Peterson, Barrister Peterson, sorry. Now, most often people have alleged corruption, on the path of the judges, right? Now, when this administration came into power, we saw the arrest of some judges still on the same count. Now, would that be biased, right? Because I know that is where you're coming from, and you're a lawyer. Would that be biased? Would you, tell us if there are traces of corruption in the judicial arm of government?
Of course, corruption is is endemic in the society, and when they say that the society is corrupt, judiciary is among the society. So you cannot dispel the fact that there is no corruption in judiciary. But my take on when there was arrest and all whatnot is that the procedure, you may have a good case, but the procedure wherein we follow may flout the whole system. Just like you may have a good case, but the procedure that you follow may make you to lose the case. So my take on that is that going to raid the houses of the judges is not the good one. Even last week, the NJC, of course, dismiss a judge of the High Court. So what are we talking about? If there is any allegation, let the due process be followed. The NJC is there. Of course, there is a judgment of the Court of Appeal Lagos that was early this year. It says you cannot go and arrest a judicial officer without the NJC dealing with the person first.
Now,
so if
are you saying that this government, look at the laws and then flout it? I don't want to say indirectly if you're saying that they don't follow due process.
No, I'm not saying holistically. Nobody is perfect. Most times you see, either by way of the person that advised the government, or most times some government official will go out and carry out some duties or some act without the approval of the superiors. So, but what I'm saying is that particular act is not a good one. The due process wasn't followed.
Now, let's get on to the path of when judgment is being given by courts of competent jurisdictions, and then the executive, blatantly flouts such orders. What is left for us? Because we know that the court is like the last hope of the common man. Now, when the court gives its verdict on certain things, and an arm of government disrespect that and go their own way, what are we supposed to have on the table?
Of course, it will be tantamount to going back to the state of nature. And of course, there is no any reasonable and civil government that will do that. So that's why it is always encouraged at all times that government and the institutions of government should also always obey the court orders and judgments.
Barrister Peterson, my question right now is, at the point that these orders are not obeyed, what are we supposed to have on the table?
When the orders are not, of course, the president, of course, the executive, they are the executors of the law. What are you going to do?
Are you saying that the hands of the courts or the judiciary as an arm of government is tied?
No, it doesn't call for the judiciary or the judges to be complacent. It calls for renewed effort.
Good. Now, if the court gives decision on certain cases, I will give instances later, and then an arm of government, either the legislature or the executive, refuses to comply to such orders, what is supposed to be done? What are we supposed to have as Nigerians?
Yes.
I mean, these are orders coming from the court.
Yes. The implication of a government not obeying court order is massive. Is very bad and catastrophic. The government not obeying the court order will, number one, make the investors not to believe in the government, because the government on its own does not believe on its institutions. Two is that it will make people even to lose faith in the government. So, of course, we are in a democratic dispensation. There is always election. When the election comes, people will now score the government by either re-electing the government or voting the government out.
Now,
the ideal thing is that the institutions of government should be obeyed,
now,
provided that they are working within the ambit of the law.
The fact we want to establish now is, let me give you instances now. Dasuki is still in custody against court's decision for bail. All right, now El Zazaki is still there in custody. Of course, we saw a horrible protest that left so many people injured, including a policeman injured, and destruction of so many police properties and all that. Now, there was a court order, granting bail to El Zazaki and Dasuki, Sambo Dasuki. Why are they still in custody?
Well, it's so unfortunate that they are still in custody.
Are you saying at the point that the court's orders are being flawed, there's nothing left for the judiciary to do?
What will the judiciary do? You see, what we are talking, you cannot use illegality to fight illegality.
So who ensures that the rule of law is being upheld? Who ensures that when there are court decisions, that there should be duly followed? And if anybody defaults, are you saying we are left with nothing? Just wait till the expiration of the term of the government?
No, what we are saying, my position is that judiciary, immediately a judge delivers judgment on a particular matter, in respect of that issue or matter that is the court becomes fontus officio. So it's not the court that will execute the law. That is why we have seen in most cases that whenever a court gives judgment, the Attorney General will come out and make a pronouncement before now and say, this authority, comply with the court judgment. We have seen in so many cases where the court declares somebody governor, the Attorney General will go on and pronounce that the relevant people or authority that are saddled with the responsibility, that they should comply with the law. It's not the court to come back and say, go and obey my this. But of course, the ideal thing is that whenever court makes pronouncement, that people and the authorities should comply with it.
Okay, now we'll go.
So when government refuse to obey, it's so unfortunate. And of course,
and then we'll have to remain in that unfortunate nature.
It doesn't tell well of the government. It doesn't tell well. It doesn't speak well of the government.
Now, if the government comes into power, for example, I wanted to delve into something else, but let's finish this. If a government, particular government, comes into power, like 2018, or let's say 2019, for example, and then from inception refuses to obey court orders, are you saying Nigerians should just fold their hands and wait and pray to God that we all don't die until the expiration of 4 terms?
No, of course. Apart from what I said is part of the solution. You know, of course, just like you made mention of the Zazaki, there has been protest. You know, you can equally get in touch with, see how you can coerce the government. You can see how you can pressurize the government. You can. That's why we most time you see editorial, just like what we are doing too. Government also listening to this program, public opinion. So these are the ways wherein the government can be, pressurized into obeying the court orders, which is good for everybody.
All right, I want us to go a bit practical now. Now, the recent court judgment that has to do with the Senate and the IG, that has to do with the Senate summoning the IG, and after 3 times he refused to come in and all that. Now, at the point, we know that the laws guiding the Senate did not provide any specific date. I'm talking about the suspension of Ovio Omoagege. Let's leave the IGP now.
Okay.
Right. Now, Ovio Omoagege was suspended for 90 days. Do you understand? From the Senate. And coming to the court said, no, you can't do that. We can just give 14 days. Now, looking at that Senate law, we know there is a lacuna there. There was no specified date there. So how did the court come up with the 14 days ruling that they gave?
Of course, you know that one of the functions, that's why if there is a lacuna in the law, the judge will now come by way of interpreting the law to cover the lacuna. Is everywhere. Even in the National Assembly, we have seen them saying doctrine of necessity and all whatnot. So if there is a lacuna, the judiciary in its wisdom can come up and interpret the law. But in the interpretation of the law, the underlying factor and what always operates at the mind of the judge or the court is to do justice to the society.
Now, the Senate gave 90 days.
Oh, yes.
The court gave 14 days. Now, peradventure this matter goes on appeal. Do you think another court, a higher court, will be able to, interpret it differently? I'm talking about the number of days given.
Yes, what I'm just like I said before is that court in the administration of justice is being guided by the justice, not just doing justice to the parties that are before them, but the society at large. And most times in the Supreme Court, they come by way of policy judgment. It's not a function of you as an individual, but either to use it to set a standard, or to use it to deter people, or to use it to set precedent, just like you rightly said.
So now, that court judgment was in order. notifying Senate 90 days of suspension?
No, I cannot. As a legal practitioner, I cannot stand here and tell you that the court judgment is wrong or right. Of course, there are procedures. If you are aggrieved or if you don't feel at home with the decisions of the court, you go on appeal. But as of today, the decision of the Federal High Court still stands in respect of that matter.
Now, when you have conflict of decisions, for example, we know the hierarchy of the court. All right, now, I just want to paint a scenario for you. Peradventure, there's a matter before High Court, and then let's say corruption matter, for example, because that's exactly what we are talking about. Now, peradventure, there's a matter before High Court, and then it's so crystal clear that, okay, this is the way it's supposed to be, and the High Court gave their judgment accordingly, and it's glaring that this is how the judgment is supposed to be. And then someone goes on appeal, I'm not really saying corruption, and then goes the other way around, and Court of Appeal gives a different judgment on it, and of course it moves to the apex court, and then we get a different judgment. And then looking at it critically, knows that the one that suffices, that is in compliance with the rule of law, is that of the High Court. What does that person have again to do?
We go back to the jurisprudence and look at what Oliver Widenholm says. He says nothing more pretentious than what the judges said. So, of course, you said hierarchy of law, you go upstairs. When you go upstairs, it means that there is superior. So when the Supreme Court gives judgment, we have seen cases where the Supreme Court we said, we are final, not that we are the best. But because the law made us to be final. So if the Supreme Court hands down their decision, of course, it's binding on the lower courts. There is no two ways about it.
All right, now let's leave the judiciary bit for now and then still look at the issue of corruption, fighting corruption that this administration has come up with. Now, we know that some funds have been recovered. Some looted funds have been recovered with the whistleblowing policy the administration came up with too. Now, without being biased, I truly understand your position as a lawyer. I understand, without being biased, that's why I said let's leave the judiciary away from it. Now, look at this whistleblowing policy and the fight against corruption. Do you think the whistleblowing policy have achieved its aim?
Okay, this whistleblowing policy of the government is an innovation that was just that the executive came up with, and just like we are experimenting it, and the government told us has come up in a couple of times to say we have recovered this, we have recovered that, and all whatnot. But the issue is that we keep improving. But now it's just executive policy, and there's no any legislation that is backing it. So it's just one at a time. And of course, recall that the function of the development of any society is the function of the law. So most times you see the law queuing behind the society. So what one is expected to do is for the executive, by way of executive bill, to marshal out a worded bill, tight bill to the National Assembly. That will go for the protection of the whistleblower. That will go for the entitlement, and because we have seen cases where some people go on air protesting that there was a whistleblowing issue that they made, and at the end of the government failed to pay them. And we have even seen a case where government said we are still investigating on where the source of the information came from. So what one is saying is that let there be a legal framework that will regulate the whistleblowing policy of the government.
Okay, now whose duty is it to initiate the legal framework?
That's what I'm saying, that it can come by way of executive bill. The Attorney General can come up with an executive bill that will be sent to the National Assembly, or an individual member can come by way of bill in the National Assembly, which at the end of the day. But what we are saying, let it have statutory flavor, let it has a backing of the law, so that there will be a formal procedure, who launched complaint, who gave the information, and also protection of that less strong individual that is giving you. Because most times you have seen the situation, even last year, when somebody gave information of a highly ranked officer of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, of an officer of this country. At the end of the day, they went there, they couldn't find anything. The government went after the person, and I'm sure that after the government might have done with the person that he defamed his name will also go after him. So these are the things that law has to take care of, so that if there is any information, because you can actually give an information that there is money here, and before the relevant authority will come, the person will move the money. That does not mean that it wasn't true. So that's what we are saying. Let there be a legal framework on how these things are done, and everybody will be better for it. And if you can recall of recent, this issue of whistleblowing is winding down. I can't remember when the last whistle was blown.
Yeah, but we also saw the finance minister, Kemi Adeosun, coming up to say that some launched sum of money, 4.8 billion naira, was being kept for those that blew the whistle, on certain things. Now, the truth is, if you are talking about fight against corruption, and you are talking about independence of the judiciary, that's where I'm coming from.
Okay.
Good. Now, having in mind that the Attorney General of the Federation and the Minister of Justice, of course, I hope is interwoven into two, right?
Yes.
Good. And they are all political appointments. Am I correct?
Yes.
Good. How does that make the judicial arm of government independent? Having the fact that, or having the knowledge that, if I appoint you to do certain things for me, you owe allegiance to me. You wouldn't want to, do anything that would hurt me, because you want to continually stay there. How does this affect the independence of the judiciary?
Okay, yes, you know that in the last amendment to the 1999 Constitution, that was one of my issues that I had then. The office of the Attorney General was separated from that of the Minister of Justice. That's one of the amendments, which, of course, we saw what happened. It didn't sell through at the end of the day. So there are frantic move by the government to separate the office of the Attorney General from that of Minister of Justice, because Minister of Justice is a party member, is a political appointee. The essence is let the Attorney General be an independent, but let him be an independent institution that, of course, the tenure has a tenure duration, and also the person will not sit in the executive council. The person will be dependent, because most times, of course, is what is reality that the Attorney General and the Minister of Justice, they are sit in the executive council, and not just that, also go for political gathering, because they are members of the political party. So the idea is that let the Attorney General be an independent body, just like you have ICPC, just like you have EFCC. So let the Attorney General be an independent body that is not a member of a political party. It doesn't belong to the government. It's just an independent body. So when we get it there, then things will begin to go downward.
But don't you think this is long overdue? We started democratic system of government since 1999, and we've seen administrations come and go. Don't you think this is long overdue, or do you think there's a deliberate attempt to just leave it there?
No, there wasn't a deliberate attempt, because, of course, if you can recall, at the last administration, it passes through the two chambers of the National Assembly, and, of course, it was given approval by the state. So there is I didn't see any atom of compromise there, but only that we had issue at the last administration, wherein the president said, no, look at this. Because of this, I will not sign the amendment of the Constitution then. So my belief is that in the next amendment of the Constitution, that will be taken care of.
And then talking about amendment, do you think there are some provisions of the law 1999 Constitution that needs to be amended? Now, that has to be in lieu with the election we're going to have next year. And then after that, I would ask if the amendment that was brought up by INEC, if it actually went through. And if it didn't go through, rather, do you think there's a political undertone to it? I mean, talking about the reordering the electoral process.
Okay, you mean the failed amendment?
Yes.
Electoral Act?
Yes, I'm asking because I know so many people don't know the outcome of that, whether it went through or it didn't go through.
No. The National Assembly came up with the Electoral Act Amendment Bill, which they sent to the President. And of course, the President withheld his assent. Then the issue that we're having now is that National Assembly say we are going to override the President. So the issue now is that he's still at the National Assembly, because the president withheld his assent and sent it back to the National Assembly. So that is at the National Assembly. But I was privileged to look at the innovation that is made in that bill that was president withheld assent. Apart from the election reordering, people are talking about their interests and how it goes. There are far-reaching innovations that is in that amendment bill. Number one is that party primaries. Unlike what we used to see, tomorrow you see some people in one market square, they will go and do primaries. That bill says if you want to do your primaries, you will submit the list of the delegates before the primaries proper. And that list there will be an affidavit by the chairman of the state party. If it is state congress, then if it's national, it will be the national chairman of the party that will depose to an affidavit. This is our members. Unlike when you see some members of political party gather one side, another time you see another people somewhere, and that was just like what played out in Imo State. So what we are saying is that there are far-reaching amendments in that electoral amendment bill that was withheld by the president. And also there is also issue of if somebody dies in the course of the election, what happens? Just like the case of Falaki that was just decided. So there are issues, silent issues that are in that amendment bill. But we hope that they will do the needful and send it back to the president. And I think this government is government of APC. There should be a synergy between the legislature and the executive. In as much that there is independence of arms of government, but there is correlation, there is intertwine, there is a relationship between the government. So let them come up. If we don't agree with this one, why not remove this one? Then the one that can go will go.
Now, talking about independence of the different arms of government, do you think is real? Do you think is working out?
Yes.
Now, I'm not just talking about the judicial arm. We all know that. Now, look about the legislature. For example, do you think they are really independent? Now, I want to draw attention to the IGP being summoned by the National Assembly. I started that first, that I had to pause on that. Now, for him to refuse 3 times, and of course we know that the provision in the law, the hands of the Senate, they are tied. The law gave them the opportunity to summon, but there were no specified punishment for them to mete out to whoever that does not show up. And it recurs to them going back to the president to do this. Now, looking at such legal framework, do you think such laws makes the National Assembly really independent?
I said before that in as much, just like Professor Nwabese said, he said that the federalism is the function of the country that is practicing it. Then independence of the arms of government.
Other arms of government.
Yes, is also function of the government or the country that is practicing it.
But is that true democracy?
Every state has its peculiarity. Our own democracy is slight, though we copied it after American Constitution. There are the similarities. If you go to US, their state, the component state, they have more powers than the composite, which is the center. So what we are saying is that, just like you asked before now, if the government, which I didn't want to go into it, refuse to obey the court order, what will the judge do? This falls back to the question that he asked. If, just like they have summoned the IGP didn't honor the invitation. If you are saying that there should be a warrant of arrest, who is going to effect it? Is it not still the police? So what we are talking about, what we are saying is that the government is, okay, who approves money? Is it not the executive? Without money, can the legislature work? Can the judiciary work? So it's just neither here or there.
It's still driving home the fact that these arms are not really independent.
It's not. What I'm saying is that there should be, in as much that they are not. If they are not independent, why didn't they approve? There are people that the executive nominate. They say no, we are not going to approve it.
Now, the legislature now,
yes,
or the judiciary, if they are financially attached to the executive, does that make them independent?
No. is not financially attached to as subservient to the executive. The releasing of the fund, if you can recall, that was last year budget. They said that the budget of the National Assembly was almost 100%, but some people are having theirs 2, theirs 3, theirs 20, theirs 40, theirs 60%, as much as 60%. So what we are saying is that not that the executive gives legislature money, no, they don't, but they do the approval. It is the executive that will release the fund.
Sure, we know.
Yes, so that's my position, that the National Assembly, and that's my position, that let there be synergy between the executive, the judiciary, and the legislature. Not that they are not independent, they are independent.
On paper.
Not on paper. They are independent in the administration.
Is it working? I mean, I'm talking about the practical independence. Is it working? I just gave you an instance.
Even if you say practical independence, the country will come to the society will come to a halt, because there must be a relation, there must be a collaboration between the arms of the government, because the end is for the betterment of even the members of the different arms, for the good governance of the country. So what's the essence of the government? Look at section 14. Welfare and security. So, okay, if you say National Assembly is independent, who provides them security? Somebody was saying that there was a threat by National Assembly. We're going to give you zero budget. One said, I'll withdraw a security. You see that we need, just like they say, we need.
No, there must be synergy within the arms. But I'm talking about when it has to do with law or rules and regulations and all that. Don't you think these arms are better, left to be independent practically? I just gave you an instance of the judiciary, and I asked if they are truly independent. Looking at the fact that,
if I may come in, if I may come in, I would have preferred that word, interference.
At what point should they interfere?
No, interference in the administration. Interference in the administration. Interference in the administration. If you look at the judiciary, the president cannot come and tell the Supreme Court judges that, see, give the judgment this way. It has not happened before.
No, he doesn't do that. But going back to what I was saying, he doesn't do that directly. Fine, he can't do that. But at the point that these judgments are given, this administration, for example, still resides within themselves, whether to obey it or not. So what has it, rubbed off on the judiciary?
Of course, it evinces frustration. It evinces anarchy. It evinces losing of faith in the government. It evinces even just like I said before, the foreigners who comes here to do business. Say, oh no, these guys, they are not serious with what they are doing.
That has always been my point. I'm asking practically, are these arms of government truly independent? I'm not really talking about funds, who gives assent and all that. Like you said, the president cannot come and say, the judge, this is what I want to do. All right, but the judge, after giving his decision, the president can decide not to obey such orders, and nothing happens. The only thing we are told is that the government becomes unpopular. Okay, the Nigerians will try to vote out. Does that make the judicial arm of government still really independent? That's exactly my point. At what point are we going to get to, as a democratic a nation, that we begin to respect each other's rules differently, in as much as we advocate for synergy of work between the arms of government?
Yes, but the issue of government, let's be sincere and be practical. Not obeying court orders and judgment is not holistic. It's just a handful of them.
No, we are not even pinning it down to this ambition. We are saying at the point that the executive refuses to obey court orders, what happens?
Yes, what actually happens is that when they feel the judiciary cannot execute, if the executive that execute. But what actually happens, just like there was a time in National Assembly, they said, since the president refused to do this, we will not give him approval of any nominee that comes before us.
Does that comply to the principle of checks and balances? Or is it off from it?
If you see, in politics, there is this principle of lobby, that rob my bag, I rob your bag. The executive will be up to their games, while the legislature will be doing theirs. So it's not a sit-tight approach.
So the executive can decide when not to obey court orders, and nothing happens. And we say we are independent, like our arms of government are truly independent.
Independent is in the respect of the administration.
I know. But I'm trying to take it.
Then can you do your own and do another person's own?
No, I have agreed with you that there must be synergy, right?
Yes.
We agree, but we are saying at the point of still looking at the principle of checks and balances.
Oh, yes.
Exactly, that is what I'm looking at. Okay. At the point that an arm of government refuses to obey one arm, what happens? Nothing happens.
Well, the nothing happens.
Really?
Nothing happens. Let me agree with you in that respect. Nothing happens, but there are nothing happens is not holistic. There are still other things that will be done, that can be done. We have seen where the court comes out since this government refused to obey the court judgment, refused to do this. Therefore, we follow procedure. Let me give you an instance. When CJN was nominated, usually it goes with two persons, and the president will always nominate the most superior. But what the NJC did was they nominated the only person, the Onoge. And the president has no option to appoint him. Even when the time elapsed, they still nominated him. So that is how it plays out.
Yeah, but we have not seen more of that in this administration.
We are making progress. Nigeria is moving forward.
All right. Thank you very much for coming. Our time is fast spent. We'll continue this discussion next time. Thank you, Barrister Peterson Ihunweze, for showing in the studio today. And to Nigerians, we were discussing the role of judiciary in the fight against corruption. Now your contribution is still needed on our social media handle, and of course our number that is still on the screen. What do you think? Do you think the judiciary have done well in the fight against corruption, or you think there is no fight against corruption, or you think it's lopsided? Just send us your feeds or your questions on our social media handles. And this is where we're cutting the National Discuss today. As to remain your host, Uche Uduma. We'll continue on Monday next week. See you.